I'm super stoked to do this small little lesson on negotiations, and it really just comes from a place of passion. And one of my favorite parts about being a lawyer is negotiating on clients' behalf and trying to get them the best deal possible. Also, I've observed in working with a lot of different clients over a long period of time that a lot of people shy away from negotiation. They don't really understand what it's about, and that's because, for the most part, I think they take things a bit too seriously. So a fun part about negotiation is understanding first and foremost that it's all a game. Even though you think that the implications are super deep and money's at stake and all of that stuff, ultimately negotiation is just a dialogue between two different parties of where one is trying to get the best deal as possible and the other is trying to get the best deal as possible. And especially when I work with yogis, there's one predominant theme that comes up, and that's the first tip about negotiation that I want to give you, and that's just the importance of asking for things. So in negotiations, oftentimes people will really want something or want to go for something and hold back and not say anything. And my encouragement to you now is ask. Go for it. If you want something, just ask for it in the negotiations, because you never know whether or not you'll be able to succeed in getting it. And this ties into the Wanderlust story that I share when I talk about different business principles in the Mountain Method, and just asking. It never hurts in negotiations to ask for something. If you're looking for time off from your job, or if you're looking to ask for more money from a client, or change the services, or change the scope of the agreement, the first thing that you do is ask. So I'm your coach. This is my encouragement from me to you. The first step to negotiations is asking. The second step is realizing that you're not going to hurt someone's feeling by pushing back on a particular point. And a lot of the times we are heart-leading people and we care a lot about others and we don't want other people to be upset. But setting boundaries has been a theme that is so present in this course, and how people communicate openly and honestly. And a lot of the times in negotiations, people will say, oh, but if we say no to that, or if we don't agree to this, then maybe we'll anger them. It's like, I don't know, let's find out. Because at the end of the day, everyone understands that it's negotiations, and everyone understands that there will be some back and forth. And standing up for yourself is really, really important, especially when it comes to things like protecting your brand, or fighting for a schedule spot, or wanting vacation, or not feeling comfortable with a current service agreement that you have with a client. So don't be afraid to push back. You're not going to hurt anyone's feelings, and just know that this is part of negotiation. So saying yes is important, and also not being afraid to say no is important. Another thing that I really want you to keep in mind when you're negotiating with somebody is putting yourself in their shoes. When you put yourself in someone else's shoes and you try to see the world through their perspective, you will suddenly realize that maybe the things that are important to you in a negotiation are not important to that other person. And the clearer you can be about the other person and what their intentions are and what's most important to them and what they're hoping to achieve, the clearer you are on that, the easier it is to craft a proposal or a unique idea or a new step in the direction of the negotiation to be able to get that person what they want. And often what you'll find, and I'm amazed at how often it comes up like this, but often what I find is you're not actually fighting about what you think you're fighting about. You have person A who has like this worldview, and oh, this is my worldview, and this is what I think about the situation. And then you have person B who's like, no, this is my worldview, and this is my outlook of the situation. And you think we're never going to bring it together. But when you ask questions, and we're going to talk about listening in a second, but when you ask the right questions to really understand the perspective of the person and also understand what do they want and what's important to them, and not only what's important to them, but why is it important to them. Once you're armed with this information, it is so much easier for you to come up with a proposal, to negotiate, to pivot, and to find a way to resolution, because now in all of the efforts that you're making, you're going to be able to communicate to exactly what that person wants. And just to reference that Marie Forleo class that I took about communication, when you're speaking to your clients or your potential clients, are you communicating to their worst nightmare or their wildest dream? And this should be the same in negotiations. That should also be present. So asking, not being afraid to say no, putting yourself in the position of the other person. And then lastly, listening. Listening is everything. And people will tell you so much about themselves, about their lives, about what they're really interested in, what they're concerned about in a negotiation when you listen to them. And I always advise clients that, I say it's sort of like the role of being a detective. Your job in this communication is be detective. Understand what's really important to this person, understand why it's important to them, and then just listen to everything that they're saying. The importance of listening. So listening to what they're saying, asking very general questions, asking questions like, why do you feel that way? Why is that important to you? What would be an ideal outcome from this scenario? And the more you can ask those questions, the more you'll be able to really hear where that person's coming from. So a lot of the times you're going to assume that the issue is about money, but in almost all of the resolutions and all the negotiations that I've been a part of on behalf of clients, we always thought at the beginning that it was about money because that's the most obvious choice or the most common issue in commercial practices. But usually it's about something like my feelings being heard, or I wasn't recognized, or I wasn't being seen, or my voice wasn't heard. And we're not therapists, we're just negotiating. So you're not really going to understand the makeup of a person, but the more you can ask these questions and then listen when they speak and just write down everything they're saying while they're speaking, you can take a step back, look at the answers, understand what's really going on, and then recalculate and recalibrate your position based on how they're really feeling and what they're really looking for. So some really super basic tips on negotiations. Just a quick summary: the importance of asking. Just ask for things. Nothing can be lost. In the same vein, not being afraid to say no. You're not going to upset someone in negotiations if you say no. And worst comes to worst, you'll just renegotiate from that point where you can say yes. You can renegotiate at that point where you can say yes to something in the future. Thirdly, the importance of asking questions and putting yourself in the shoes of the other person. What is their worldview? What do they care about? What are they happy about? What are they sad about? What would be a positive resolution for them? And then lastly, listening. You've done an awesome job listening to this chapter. Listen in as much detail as possible. If you're speaking over the phone and you're saying, hey, I just want some clarity on your perspective. Can you explain a little bit better what you're interested in for this particular deal or how you want to resolve this? You just write it down and be very, very clear. Take some time, review what they said. Just write down what they said, review the notes, and you'll be in an amazing position to succeed. So these are super basic tips, but also things that can help you so much. And I really hope that it helps you, and I'm happy to share this information with you.